Welcome, everybody, those watching live and recorded. I'm Christopher Tipper with Hunter Benefits Consulting Group, and this is our third Wednesday of the month uh, mini webinar, sales positive, ERISA based, all things having to do with cash balance and 401k plans, etc. Joining me today is Eric Dyson. We are going to be discussing, well, I'm going to be paying attention. Eric's going to be discussing. Let's be clear, okay? 5 fiduciary questions for financial professionals. Learn where the fiduciary status begins. I've been doing this for a while and I'm still learning, and what it means for you and your clients. All right. And we do like to start off with a quick poll. I know there's only a couple of people here. Before we dive in, how knowledgeable are you about fiduciary duties under ERISA? In the chat, type in your type in the number under 1 if you're unsure, 2, somewhat, 3, very knowledgeable. Eric, you don't get to answer. You better be 4. Okay. If you don't put 4 down, Eric, we're going to find somebody else real quick. All right. So we did. Oh, we don't have a slide. No. So yes, here it is. So once upon a time, I think it was last year, Eric was our guest on our podcast. He was one of our first guests. Thank you very much, Eric. And I was talking, or we started talking about whether or not you use the E word, expert. Okay. And what was your answer? Do you remember?
No, I don't recall the answer. I
I
know when
remember.
I'm in when I'm in
Your
litigation,
lawyer
I
said
absolutely use the word E
yeah.
word, right?
Yeah, your lawyer says you better because you're testifying in court. Okay. So the only reason I'm bringing this up is I very often get introduced as an expert, and I really don't like it when people do that. I just know more than most. Eric truly is an expert, and he's got his own podcast, Be More Than a Fiduciary. And he also has very specific fiduciary training through his 90 North University. And the website is there at the bottom, 90northllc.com. Is that correct, Eric?
Yes,
Okay.
and there'll be a drop down for 90 North University.
Oh, that's right. I forgot it's the separate thing there. So
That's
all very
fine.
good content. All right. So what we're going to do now is go to our first question because we've got 5 of them. When Eric, Now, no, don't anybody think we're surprising Eric with this. We want this to go well. When does a financial professional become an ERISA fiduciary? And I'm going to have Eric give the answer, and then I'm going to admit to being right or wrong.
Okay, well, there's a two-part answer to the question. The first is that you can become an ERISA fiduciary by contract in writing. So just as a reminder to everyone that any 408(b)(2) disclosures should indicate whether it is expected that you would be performing duties as a fiduciary. Okay. Now, I said part 1, right, because it should be designated in writing. Okay. There are certainly financial professionals out there who are more serving in an education capacity where your firm hires someone like a Wilshire, as an example. There are other services to kind of do this bolt-on fiduciary aspect, but your role is not. So, black and white, you can name yourself as a fiduciary by contract. But part 2 is you can accidentally or inadvertently put that tag on yourself by being what's called a functional fiduciary. So let's say your contract, your agreement says, no, we're not a fiduciary, but you show up at committee meetings and say, I recommend you replace fund XYZ with fund ABC. You have just made yourself a functional fiduciary because you are giving investment advice for a fee, and that will define you as a fiduciary. So number 1, by contract, which is going to be most common, but check your 408(b)(2) disclosures. But number 2, you can inadvertently become a functional fiduciary, and that is the law.
Okay.
So how are we
So
doing there, Christopher?
very good. Well, I got that mostly right. So time for stupid questions. If you give advice without being paid, are you a fiduciary?
Ooh. It says advice for a fee.
Yeah.
I still think you got to be real careful there. Now, let me give you an example where, no, I was going to say I serve on 2 committees. I'm automatically a fiduciary. by
Well,
title,
no.
but
So,
I don't.
somebody at the tennis club who's a financial professional tells a buddy to kick out Flaming Star Growth and put in, we've never heard of it, balanced fund. Okay, in your company's 401k plan.
I would say in that example, and let's go back to my disclaimer first, which you have to do a lot of that in expert witness work, right? You
Yeah,
have to
sorry
say,
about that.
generally speaking, but so that example I think is a good one because it would not be recurring advice. And my disclaimer is y'all pretty much familiar with, depending on who's in office, whether the Democrats or the Republicans, and not a political discussion, but we try to define a fiduciary, and they do that for 4 years, and a new president gets in office and says, no, they didn't know what they're talking about, and we've been churning that. But one of the
Right.
things is it recurring regular advice? So
Okay.
I would avoid, Christopher, what you said, that example. Don't do it, but I don't think that would tag somebody as a fiduciary.
But so one of the things we've been trying to be very clear on all the videos we've been doing since 2020 is very careful about the use of the A word, advice, because my understanding, and I don't know where he went, but I thought there was at least one RIA actually on the call who always operates as a fiduciary. Okay, but I know most people, especially most broker dealers, that and there's education, and I'm not going to ask to define education versus advice right now. I think that's a different podcast, okay? But I think they take that as the bright or dividing line for fiduciary is when it's just education, understanding what risk tolerances are, understanding the difference between a growth and balance fund, and understanding what it means to replace a fund or not replace a fund. That's education, that's not advice, and that where you can stay away from the F word, right?
100%.
It
And just a
depends.
real quick,
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I know you said it's a different discussion, it is, but I did operate in that environment for a little bit of time. And so without going into detail, it's a very careful choice of words. So I would go in and do an investment review. This is when I was not wearing a fiduciary advice as or fiduciary hat as the advisor to the plan. I'd say, hey, look, this fund has been on the watch list for 4 quarters. And your investment policy statement says if it's been on the watch list for 4 quarters, you should consider replacement. And here are 2 additional funds for you to consider as to whether you want to replace it or not.
Which
I
then
didn't
I
give
think
a
we
recommendation or I didn't give advice with that.
no, you didn't. But does we will get to question number two, I promise. Does providing, and we've got a cat joining the meeting, does providing or creating an investment policy statement, I think that was the exact phrase you used, for plan sponsors, is that in and of itself a fiduciary act?
I think it is. And the reference for me, Department of Labor Interpretive
Mm.
Bulletin 2016-01. The drafting and implementation of an investment policy statement is a fiduciary act. Now, providing a template to your client could probably keep you short of giving fiduciary advice. If they implement that template, that was their decision. I know we're splitting hairs here, but that's what
No, it's a
makes all
good
the
one
difference in
because
the world.
I do these things to learn. That's why I have these monthly webinars. Okay. I'd not, because that question is just something I just thought of. I never, because you've got people wanting to provide the investment policy statement. And because you said it's a situation where if you're on the watch list for 4 quarters, I think you said, okay, your investment policy statement says you have to kick it off. But if you are a financial professional, Fred Flintstone, trying not to be a fiduciary, okay, but they're using your document, I think an argument can be made. A lawyer could argue either way. It's probably not clear cut, but it's. I like your template idea.
Yeah, and let's just think about that. So the other example is I will routinely provide a template for committee charters to folks, but I don't say that you shouldn't have that reviewed. It is a very fine line. I think the thing to remember here is the investment policy statement is a document that belongs to the plan sponsor. The advisor doesn't own that. I mean, the investment policy statement has to line up with whatever platform you're using to evaluate investments, but the plan sponsor owns that document. They're going to be the one that signs it, which is why I think you're typically going to be okay with a template and tell them, hey, this is a suggestion or this is what our other clients typically use. Didn't tell them they had to.
Yeah, I finally thought of it. So what was that thing, Mad Libs? Okay, where you've got a template and you just fill in random words. Yeah, I'm sorry, forgive me. Okay,
That's
can
good.
we can move on to question number two?
All
All
right.
right. All right. What does it actually mean? Oh, this could be an hour.
Yeah.
What does it actually mean to act solely in the interest of plan participants and beneficiaries? And can you give an answer without using the phrase forfeiture account?
I can. We can avoid that F word separate from the initial
The
F
other
word,
F word.
right?
The other F word.
Okay, everybody buckle your seatbelts because I'm going to go through this quickly in the interest of time. All right. Four principal fiduciary duties. There's three, what I call three add-ons. Okay. The duty of prudence, the duty of loyalty, the duty to follow the plan document, the duty to diversify assets. Let me repeat those four. Duty of prudence, duty of loyalty, duty to diversify assets, duty to follow the plan document. What some people will add on, which is fine, right, is to pay only reasonable expenses and avoid conflicts of interest and avoid prohibited transactions. Okay. Now, those, I call those extras because in my mind, they all come up to the four. And if you read exactly how the statutory language is for ERISA, the question on the screen, the part of the presentation, exclusively, and if you remember one thing out of this question answer, use the word exclusively in the best interest of plan participants and the beneficiaries. Is following the plan document exclusively in their best interest? Typically, yes. Is diversifying plan assets exclusively in their best interest? Typically, yes. Is a prudent process, i.e., the duty of prudence, is that exclusively in their best interest? So, let me add a little bit of a bow around this, but remember the word exclusively, that means with a single minded lens, a single minded view toward the participant. Okay. So my brother-in-law does this, and my brother-in-law is, pretty good financial advisor, and it'll be easy just to hire my brother-in-law as the financial advisor because it'll make things better for us because we don't have one, but is defaulting to the brother-in-law exclusively in the best interest of the plan participants? Probably not. Now, if I'll stop after this one, Christopher, and let you ask any questions. If a plan decides, hey, we need to hire an advisor, and oh, by the way, my brother-in-law is pretty good at this. And oh, by the way, I'm going to step away from the process and I'm going to let you all figure out whether my brother-in-law is the right person or not, because I think he's the right person. But I will excuse myself because there's a conflict here. And then there's a process. It's okay to hire the brother-in-law, even though there's this pecuniary, this extra benefit, but we did it exclusively for the participants.
Right. So yes, because of time. Yes or no? Did this ever involve the plan sponsor getting the least expensive solution?
No, that's not the primary. Now, you certainly
Right.
want to look at fees, right? If solution A and solution B are otherwise completely equal, which is rarely going to happen, then you would look at, hey, here's the lowest fee. And I would tell you this, the easiest way to separate that whole fee issue out of it is to write a check for whatever services you can. Write a check to the TPA, write a check to the record keeper. You can't really write a check for investment fees, but taking those
Mhm.
costs out of the plan simplifies that discussion. Now, that may not always be practical. A company can't always necessarily
Right.
do that.
Right. All right. Moving on to number three. How should financial professionals help plan sponsors document a prudent fiduciary process? And did we
Okay.
accidentally give you an advertisement for your university?
Well, it will cover that.
Okay.
It does. Okay.
Okay.
And some teams accidents are serendipitous. Okay. So the way that you help them document is a number of reasons, but let's go back to the four fiduciary duties. Okay. And two of them were prudence and loyalty. All right. And prudence,
Yeah.
the first thing to help them is when you have these binoculars in your fiduciary lens, you are blind unless you take the cover,
Yes.
okay,
There
off
we
the
go. Yes.
binoculars.
Yes.
Okay. Now, I intentionally use these binoculars because this is a pretty darn good pair of binoculars. They're Vortex. I bought them for hunting, and they're actually a little heavier and a little bigger than I cared to carry around my chest. So I carry a smaller pair. But if you know about focusing binoculars, you have to focus one lens at a time to get the right picture. Okay. So the question is, how do you document that process? One lens is prudence, the other lens is loyalty. Okay. And here's a phrase I want you to write down. Prudence is
Okay.
about process, loyalty is about purpose. Okay. And in all the cases in litigation, and if I looked at any of your clients, if I looked at any plan's meeting minutes, and I assumed that there was a reasonable effort in capturing those meeting minutes, I would almost always see a good documentation of prudence. What is often lacking is the documentation of loyalty,
And loyalty is about
purpose. Okay.
purpose. Thank you.
Let's go
Sorry.
back to the prior question, right? Why did we change out this fund? Well, we had this, process and we looked at this and it was on the watch list and we decided and we debated. That all discusses process and prudence. We replaced Fund A with Fund Z because we thought it was in the best interest of our plan participants. Okay. And that simple phrase in meeting minutes helps to demonstrate that you're doing this for the purpose of your participants. So, two questions to always ask when we make this decision: will someone other than the participants benefit? Well, if you're changing record keepers, yeah, the new record keeper will benefit. If you're changing investments, the new investment provider will benefit. So, most of the times, the answer will be yes, someone else will benefit. But the second question is, did we do this exclusively for our participants? And that is the best way to document the process and loyalty.
Huh. All right. Well, we got, wow,
And remember
I
to take
knew.
the cover off your,
Yeah,
binoculars will be fine, right? You got to actually look.
yes. Which is kind of like pulling out your investment policy statement and reading it, right? Okay.
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay. I think we're on number 4.
Right.
Oh, this could be a while. What are the most common fiduciary mistakes advisors can help plan sponsors avoid? Notice it's not their mistakes, it's plan sponsors.
Yeah. So let's talk about the most common mistakes. And I'm going to actually take the F word. We're going to take fiduciary off of that. Okay.
Okay.
Number one, from a sales standpoint, and a retention standpoint, what I'm seeing committees and HR professionals look more and more and more for is you, the advisors, to help take some of the administrative burden from their plans off them. Okay. One of the biggest, and we're in that time of year, is the audit. So the
Mm,
biggest mistakes are more settler issues of not, and you could say, well, it's a fiduciary issue if you don't follow the plan document. So definition of compensation. Oh, we forgot to include bonuses as an eligible,
right.
contribution source, or bonuses should not have been included in the match. Timeliness of contributions. Okay. The block and tackling of executing, right? And I'll give a perfect example. These things normally happen when there's turnover, either personnel turnover, or you change HCM systems, or a record keeper, a TPA change, right? I serve on a committee where they put a new HCM system into place. Everything went fine. But what nobody communicated to them well was they had to renew the auto enrollment and confirm it every 1 January. So everything was going fine for a year. Come the next January, they didn't renew the auto enrollment for
No,
the new
and the auto
participants.
escalate. Yeah.
Well, they caught it within a reasonable amount of time, but it was a pain in the neck to clean it up. So enrollment, definition of compensation, timely contributions, those are not lawsuit material, right? But those are the most common mistakes, and they are a pain in the neck to fix. Okay. So most of you advisors, you're not the experts on file feeds. I'll tell you who is, and you can get some help with is have conversations with your clients and their auditors. And this is assuming more than 100 right participants in the plan. But the smaller plans, you want to figure out, hey, are you actually doing and operating your plan in accordance with your plan document? And Christopher, that's where you and your team can help out a lot. And advisors, you have to engage with both the client and the TPA to help avoid those mistakes.
Okay. Okay. Oh wow. All right. So I do have. I think, are we on number five? Okay.
Yes, sir. I think so.
Oh, okay. And then we haven't. And all right. So what is the difference between 321 and 338, and why does it matter? And let's add to this. Who does it matter to? If that makes sense.
Okay. The black and white answer to the question is 17. Now,
I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry. No.
here's why I say that. Okay. For those of you that know Don Trone, in fact, I had a call with Don Trone just before this. Don is considered by many to be the father of the fiduciary movement in ERISA. And Don is the one that
Okay.
says 17, right? And his reason is no matter which of these hats you're wearing, 320 or 338, you're still serving as a fiduciary. Let's not forget that. Okay. I'm not trying to avoid the question, right? But there's still a very important fiduciary role. So I sent to Christopher and his team, I have a one-page PDF that
Right.
outlines this, okay? And we'll talk about why it matters. The easy answer is 321. You're making recommendations to the plan, and this is related to investment advice. We recommend you remove this fund and replace it with this fund. The plan sponsor has the final decision on whether to do that or not. 338, you're receiving as an advisor discretionary authority. Okay. Now, that's not to suggest you wouldn't be a good communicator and say, hey, we've found that for our clients who are using this fund A, it's underperforming for the following reasons. And across the board for our 338 clients, we're replacing it with Fund X. We plan on doing that to your plan in the next 90 days. Okay, everybody understands that. So it's discretionary authority. And to me, the two biggest advantages are if there's a huge shakeup at a fund or a huge market event, something happens as a 338, it allows the advisor to take action a little sooner than otherwise might take place if it's necessary. And the
Okay.
second advantage
You're not
is
waiting
this,
for a committee.
right. And then the other part about the committee is you have to spend less time in the committee meetings talking about investment. It frees up time to talk about education, plan design, things that can impact the participant. My caution is, and this is in the document, and especially if you're an advisor that you're not allowed to serve as a 338 discretionary manager, those are oversold, right? A lot of times the 338 manager is saying, oh, we take on all the fiduciary responsibility. If anything ever happens to your plan, we're responsible for it. Well, the committee still has a duty to monitor the 338 manager, and the really, really, really good 338 advisors and 338 investment managers not only do that job, but they give the client some kind of a template or a checklist to say, this is what we think you need to do to monitor us. Have we done this for you? Have we done this for you? Have we done the following things for you? Okay. So that is to me why it matters to understand what the roles are and to understand where the dividing lines are. So, and
Okay.
Christopher,
Now,
one of mine may not make it, but would need to send us here now. Mike DeCenzo's on the line. So, anyways, so let me
yeah.
pause there and let you
Oh,
go,
we got a lot more
Christopher.
people. Oh, golly, we got more people here. Okay. So when you, because you were using the word advisor for 338, but a lot of them, and I'm just got Morningstar on the brain because we're talking to them in a month or two. Okay. And a company like Morningstar can be a 338. So when you're talking about a 338, whether it's an RIA who's acting as a 338 on their own, or they're hiring out another company to do the 338, that's all the function of the 338 is always the same. That
Um,
was a question.
I say no, it for the most part, and that's not me, giving my expert witness. Generally speaking, there can be differences there. Okay.
Really?
Yes, and here's the difference, and this would come into play for both the 321 and the 338, okay? So there are some services that are available that say, hey, here's a menu of funds, and we'll serve as a 338 as long as you use one of these six large cap growth funds. Well, does that mean you put all six of those large cap growth funds into your client's plan? Somebody still has to pick from among that menu of what's going to be included. And I'm not criticizing those folks. It's just understanding where the responsibilities are. And it's more prevalent in like the Wilshires and the Leaf House where it's a 321 lineup, that somebody's still responsible for choosing out of this approved menu. How do we shrink it down to a more
Okay.
reasonable menu of funds for for this plan and for the participants?
Okay. So I know we've only got a few minutes left. I've used a good part of the Q&A portion for my own questions. Sorry, guys. Robin, I had a quick look. Do we have any questions? Because I do have one more for Eric that comes up a bunch. Robin? No, is Robin here?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm here.
Do we
No,
have any questions?
I don't see
Okay. All
any.
right.
No.
Thank you. So, Eric, what Rob and I come across, Rob and Kaylin and I come across a lot as we're looking for new plans. Many of them are not, new clients. Many of them are already in existence on a record keeper platform. Okay. And many of those plans already have some advisor compensation leaving it. All right. Whatever percent. We do occasionally find plans when we ask a plan sponsor, "Oh, who's your financial advisor?" Because we would like to always meet more financial advisors. And the response is, "I don't know." Okay. Or we have a very specific case where the person being paid on the plan hasn't had a license for 7 or 8 years, and the broker dealer has just been happily collecting the funds. Okay. Now, because of my focus as being a compliance geek, I've always thought this is more a problem for the plan sponsor because they are having participants pay for a service, one, that they're not getting, and two, they don't know who they're paying it to. Okay. So it's a two-part question. We always feel duty bound to bring this up to the plan sponsor, but they always feel like we're fear mongering. Okay. And then does the institution, is there ever any requirement for the institution who's getting I'm going to use the phrase ill-gotten gains? Okay. Is there ever any responsibility for that institution to not be taking the money?
The answer is yes and yes. I mean, this is an easy one, Christopher. You're right. Number one,
Really?
they're paying for a service they're not getting. Okay. Um, Violation of a fiduciary duty, right? Paying only reasonable fees. It violates the duty of prudence, and it clearly violates the duty of loyalty, right? It's not exclusively in their best interest to be paying for something for which they receive no value. 100%. Okay. And the other is, you're right, the institution that's collecting that, they are bound to do that. And here's where it will happen from time to time. And I've not had it happen to me, but I've had it happen where I was advisor on some small plans for an organization I worked for. And then when I was no longer working for that organization and moved, they never repapered those plans to a new advisor. So on paper, it still showed that Eric Dyson was the advisor. My CRD clearly showed that I didn't work there anymore,
Yeah, you weren't getting
but the,
paid.
the
Yeah.
firm was receiving compensation. It was not my duty to go back and tell them. In fact, picture that. Picture if when I leave a firm, I tell them, well, I want to call all my clients and tell them I'm leaving.
Yeah, I ain't gonna let that happen.
That's not going to
But
happen, right?
right.
But yes, it does happen, and you're right. It is clearly a problem. And Christopher, your role is, yeah, to clearly point out, hey, this is what we see, and we view this as a problem. I
Now
would,
I am
as far as fear, one more thing, as far as fear mongering, just don't tell them, hey, we view this as a violation of fiduciary duty. We view this as a problem that needs to be fixed.
so just fix it. So fix it, go forth and sin no more. Don't worry about the past sins. I know
I
we're
wouldn't
not, I
say,
know we're on a recorded
it's
line, Eric, but
no, I was gonna say it's a hard stretch to say not worry about the past sins, but number one, let's get it fixed, right? Let's move that direction very quickly.
all right. I am presuming we're basically out of time. I'm presuming that anybody that's on this call that is a financial professional does have a concern about doing things properly from a fiduciary point of view. Robin and I, even though we shy away from the F word, we try our best. Have you come across or do you have in your library a good short piece to help us explain this to plan sponsors so that it comes from a neutral source? that the
I
rest of
feel
us.
that I do. I feel that at 90 North University, the ERISA Basics is designed exactly for that.
Okay,
No,
that
it
was
is.
accidental, guys. I was hoping for a free one pager, but apparently we got to all go sign up.
No,
Okay.
I'm very, and I don't want to call it a shameless plug because I'm pretty proud of that module. And yes, it will give CFP CE credit and it will give SHRM credit, okay, for those that engage in them.
Oh,
But yeah,
it
the
gives
fiduciary
Sherm?
basics, I'm
I
very, very
forgot
proud
about
of
that.
those.
Okay. Okay.
Now, one more thing, Christopher, I can send you. I don't know if I forward it, but I will. But I do have what's called ERISA the basics. I think I may have already forwarded to you, but I'll make sure you have it.
Okay.
It's a
Okay.
document that an advisor once asked me, do I have anything that could be made available to a new committee member? And my answer was no, I don't have that, but I think it's a great idea, and I produce it based on that.
Okay. All right. Well, everybody, thank you very much. If you've been here before, you know what to do. Hopefully, we've moved the needle. If you could please give us an answer again, we hope the scores go up. Everybody's been nice on all the prayer calls. Robin, I don't think the scores have ever gone backwards. No. So Eric, you're wonderful. You're such a great guest. You're so gracious. Love how you answer things. I think you bring a calm and a depth, okay, to what we're talking about. Both you make it both more and less scary at the same time, and that's quite a feat, Eric. So I'm
I want to hear.
very
I
very
want to hear
happy to have
fun.
you.
I want to hear fun next time. Okay.
Oh, well, yeah. Okay. Yeah, you were fun. All right, fine. But how do you have expert and fun? Okay. But we were drinking alcohol last time, Eric. So,
Well, I
all
know.
right.
I'm bringing coffee
Okay.
this time. All right. Thank you, everybody, for your
Okay.
time.
Thank you, everybody. If you've registered, you're going to get the slide deck and the recording, right, Robin? Yeah.
Mhm.
So, all right. Thank you very much, everybody. Next month is, I didn't say it. Next month is American Funds. How easy it is to set up a plan just in time to be safe harbor. Okay. All right. Take care, everybody. Bye bye.